I'm giving you my child. You should be grateful. Standing at the entrance are my in-laws and sister-in-law along with her daughter, who just turned 2. Ever since they divorced 6 months ago, they've been pushing the care of my niece onto us, my husband and me. Far from stopping her, my in-laws are trying to make us take in my niece, despite the fact that we, a couple who haven't been blessed with children, don't have the means to raise someone else's child. But then an unexpected event would soon unfold concerning this child. I, Kelly Allen, am 27 years old. I got married 3 years ago to John, who is 29, and was running a restaurant at the time. We got married with plans to expand our family, but unfortunately, we were not blessed with children. However, thanks to the kind-hearted John, we have been able to lead a busy yet enjoyable life. In fact, since getting married, I have only met John's family a handful of times. This is because John has never been very close with his family. Since opening this restaurant, the gap between them has only widened. Originally, John's parents were executives at a major family restaurant chain, and John also got a job at the same company through connections. They wanted John to join the same company, but John had a dream. I want to provide dishes that cater to each and every customer. Far from accepting his feelings, his sister treated him as if he was the bad guy. Are you criticizing our chain? It must have been irritating for John that John didn't listen to her. After being nagged continuously and having discussions that went nowhere, John eventually gave up trying to persuade them. I want to keep my distance from my parents as much as possible. If that's what you want, then I'll stay out of it too. Thus we have spent our days together in peace. However, everything changed when John divorced and moved back into her parents' home 6 months ago. It was during lunchtime on a weekday. We were attending to customers as usual when the restaurant door was flung open. I'm here again today. Oh dear, it's as empty as ever, exclaimed John in a piercing voice. She had arrived with her mother and her 2-year-old niece, and they settled heavily into a table seat. You're back again. Haven't I always told you not to be so loud? Always nagging, aren't you? Anyway, bring me the usual lunch and make it quick. While it's great she visits, my sister-in-law John has never once paid. Honestly, we were at our wits' end and just exchanged looks with each other. Then I whispered to my husband, I'll handle this, and stood in front of John. There are other customers here, so if you're going to eat here, you need to pay just like everyone else. What? You're actually going to charge the family? You're such a low life. Everyone in the restaurant turned towards John and put down their spoons and forks. Please don't raise your voice. It's disturbing the other customers, I asked her politely, but she wouldn't listen. It's all your fault. John's been poisoned by sticking with such a dull woman like you. The atmosphere in the restaurant froze at her harsh words. Then my husband stopped cooking, rushed out of the kitchen, and said, If you're just here to cause trouble, please leave. If there's something you want to discuss, we can talk later. We'll correct any shortcomings, so please spare us any further trouble. But John wouldn't listen to me or my husband and just kept on complaining. Even her mother, instead of stopping her, arrogantly said, Hurry up and make it. Realizing we couldn't calm things down, we served them lunch. After eating, they left without paying, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. And it didn't stop there. John began to behave even more selfishly. You guys take care of my niece today, too. Every day, my sister-in-law started dropping off her daughter at our shop. That's why I'm saying we're working. It's your responsibility as a mom to take care of her. What? I'm busy. Since there are hardly any customers, you might as well be useful to me. John forcefully pushed the care of her niece onto me. To her, my husband and I were just free, unlimited babysitters. In order to completely offload the care of her daughter, John and her mother started visiting our restaurant frequently. I'm really sorry about my family. I didn't want to cause trouble for you or the restaurant, Kelly. A few minutes after they left, John muttered dejectedly. As John said, our business wasn't exactly flourishing. However, their causing disturbances in the restaurant was also part of the reason. Our regulars who preferred to dine in peace gradually stopped coming to our place. At this rate, it's not just about John. Poor John. While quietly holding my niece, I sighed with a heavy heart. Nevertheless, we kept pushing through. But a few weeks later, our relationship with the in-laws took a sudden turn. One evening after closing up, John and my in-laws showed up, not at the restaurant, but at our house. As soon as John and I opened the front door, she forcefully pushed John, who looked bewildered, towards us. I'm giving you my child. Be grateful. Both John and I were shocked, and our eyes widened. Wait, what do you mean? Even though I suspected it was harassment because we couldn't have children, I questioned her. You guys are free since there are no customers, right? That's why I'm saying you should become John's parents. It turned out she had decided to completely abandon caring for her niece. Not only that, but the grandparents didn't want to take care of their granddaughter either. John's face turned red with anger at their irresponsible statements. That's too much. You're giving up on John? Don't say such awful things. I brought her here thinking you guys who don't have children could. Although only 2 years old, John seemed to sense the tense atmosphere and looked down nervously, sucking on her finger. You don't have to worry about that. Please take her back. I firmly shook my head in response to John's words. Children should be raised by their mothers. Anyone would understand how important a mother's presence is to a 2-year-old child if they just thought about it for a moment. You have no right to refuse. If there were some serious reason, maybe. But I can't just nod in agreement to selfish reasons like it's just too much trouble. However, I firmly rejected her request. Come on, we are busy with work. Besides, I just don't find a daughter with my ex-husband's blood cute at all. The next moment, when John blurted out those words, I was deeply shocked. Those are words that a parent should never say, especially not in front of the child herself, which is absolutely reprehensible. Yet my in-laws agreed with her and shared the same sentiment. John and they together would just make this poor child miserable. Realizing this, I hugged John tightly in my arms. My instincts kicked in, driven by an unprecedented sense of mission. I must make this child happy. All right, so you're really okay with John being our child. When I asked her in a firm tone, John just smirked. Of course. And I'll specially sell you all her baby gear and toys. I don't need them anymore, so you'd better buy everything, she said in a condescending tone, while her parents smirked unpleasantly behind her. Not only shedding their parental responsibilities, but also trying to squeeze money out of us. They are truly beyond redemption. However, if this means we can cut ties with them, it's actually a win for us. When I consulted with John, he felt the same way. Yes, we'll buy everything at your asking price. In return, you two should never show your faces to John and me again. I responded with a resolute attitude. She stepped closer to me, asserting, Don't act so high and mighty. You're just a daughter-in-law. I was going to do it anyway. Just be ready for a hefty bill later. With that, John and her parents quickly left, having used us as they deemed necessary. Later, as she had declared, John sent John's used toys and clothes in a box with cash on delivery, which included a bill for $30,000. With business slow and our finances already tight, I couldn't afford luxuries for John. But let's use the savings I had from before I was married. No, but that's too expensive. It shouldn't cost that much. Honestly, I'm nervous about using up our savings, but using the things John has already been using would make her feel more secure, right? As I waited for a response while watching my husband ponder silently, he finally agreed with me. Yeah, you're right. John would be happier being raised by us than staying at her old home. Thank you, honey. Let's protect this child together. And so I ended up raising John as my own daughter, together with my husband. Since then, our life became busier as we juggled managing the restaurant and raising a child. However, with the in-laws no longer visiting, our mental burden decreased. Both my husband and I have always loved children. Above all, John was so adorable, and I felt motivated to do anything for her. The changes in our life weren't just about having a new family member. What a busy day today. Yes, I never imagined our restaurant would have a line out the door. After a long day, my husband and I looked at each other and laughed. Our restaurant, which had once been so quiet, experienced its first ever boom. Apparently, the omelette we recently added to the menu had gone viral on social media and had become famous without our knowledge. The most surprising part was how we started offering that omelette. Who would have thought we'd get such a chance from John? As I patted her head, still only speaking in simple words, I muttered. In fact, while brainstorming new menu items, John suddenly said omelette. Surprised, and since we weren't offering an omelette at the time, I made one loaded with eggs and covered it with the demi-glace sauce we use at the restaurant. And as John always did, we served it in a way that suited each customer individually. This became an unexpected hit. Furthermore, John continued to help out. Whenever I was coming up with new menu items, she would mutter names like Napoleon or pudding. And when John adjusted and served them, they were very well received. Customers would say, "This is exactly what I wanted to try and eat," with pleasure. With the previous challenges in managing the restaurant gone, our lives became more vibrant with John's arrival. I wonder if John has some kind of mysterious power. It must be true. The other day, when I was looking for my glasses, she was just staring behind the shelf. When I checked, they fell behind it. Wow, John, that's amazing. Of course, it's all thanks to John's arrangement, though. When we praised them, John and my husband tilted their heads slightly, then smiled happily. They looked just like they had always been our child. I was worried at first, but with things going like this, I can definitely give John a good life. Even in ordinary daily scenes, I felt filled with happiness. But then something unbelievable caught my eye. What's this? Hey, look at this, John, who had opened his phone to check a message, exclaimed in surprise. Curious, I looked at the screen too, and a news article was displayed. The content shocked me so much that my eyes widened. No way. Can this even happen? Watching us in surprise, John, perhaps thinking something, picked up a box of building blocks. Then slowly she extended it towards us. When we shook it, we could hear something inside. Could it be? Is there something inside this too? To that question, she looked intently back into my eyes. If John is looking so serious, there must definitely be something. We carefully examined the blocks and were astonished. A simmering anger began bubbling up from deep within. To think she had hidden such a thing. Unforgivable. My anger flared, but we had to wait for the right time. A few weeks later, in the middle of the night, John and I were awakened by the sound of the doorbell. Careful not to wake John, we cautiously opened the front door. There stood John with disheveled hair. Finally, give me back my daughter right now. Her sudden outcry left John and me looking at each other. Weren't you the one who pushed her onto us? What are you saying now? Weren't we supposed to never see each other again? If there's a reason, you should start with that. As we were about to shut the door, John forcibly wedged her foot in and kept it open. "She's my child, born to me. I've come to take her back, so bring her quickly." We made it clear that it was not possible, but John kept insisting on taking her daughter back. With no end in sight, and to avoid causing a disturbance, we were at a loss. Frustrated by John's selfish behavior, I sighed deeply and crossed my arms. "Could you please not take out your frustrations on us just because the company you work for is failing?" "What? Why would you bring that up? I saw it on the news. It looks like you're having a tough time." Caught off guard and clearly embarrassed, John's face turned bright red. As I recalled the news I had seen recently on John's phone, it was about a scandal at the chain restaurant where her family works. Apparently, they had been using expired ingredients to cut costs, which ultimately led to a mass food poisoning incident. As a result, they faced a massive backlash in the media and on social media, and the chain's performance had plummeted. Everything was fine until we gave up our daughter, and then this happened. It must be because she's gone. John, seemingly having faced severe repercussions, distorted her face in anger as she screamed, "What are you talking about? John has nothing to do with this." "No, she definitely isn't involved. Ever since then, everything has been terrible for us." According to John, their misfortune didn't stop there. Her mother had lost a wallet containing a large amount of money, and her father had caused a car accident, resulting in having to pay $6,000 in damages, just one thing after another. John believed John was to blame for it all. "Ever since you took John, hasn't your restaurant been thriving?" I can only think she's involved. At her words, John and I were rendered speechless. While we couldn't blame all the misfortunes of her family on Riker, we couldn't deny that the child might have some mysterious power. It was strange how fortune kept following us while they faced difficulties. Maybe I should help them out a bit despite the bad feelings they caused. It's hard to watch someone suffer. Just as I was about to speak, Jolly raised her voice sharply. "With that child, we would be secure, and all this misfortune would come your way instead." As she attempted to enter the house, John and I stopped her, and any sympathetic thoughts I had quickly vanished. "We will never hand Riker over to you. It's only been a few months, but we cherish her as our own child. We can't entrust her to someone who only wants her back for their own benefit." John and I glared at her with stern faces. "Shut up. Don't talk to my wife like that. You're so greedy. I am absolutely confident that I care for Riker far more than Jolly ever did. No matter what happens, I have no intention of letting her go, so please leave." I simply couldn't forgive Jolly for treating her own daughter like an object, something that should be treasured above all else. Moreover, our restaurant's success is because John has been seasoning and plating each dish according to our customers' preferences. John had maximized the hints he received from Riker by catering to individual tastes with options like rich flavor, light taste, or a bit spicy. The plating varied as well. He adorned dishes with edible flowers for women who wanted to post on Instagram, and for men with hearty appetites, he piled on large portions. This became a talking point and led to our restaurant's great success. Still, without Riker, it wouldn't have become so popular, right? While Jolly had a point, I strongly believed that it was John's thought and consideration for our customers that made a significant difference. Give me back my cash cow. To talk about Riker that way, I despise it. John looked at Jolly with a face full of pity. No matter how much you cry or scream, my mind won't change. I don't want to see your face anymore. In calm anger, I presented a flash drive in front of her, who showed no signs of leaving. The misfortune isn't because of my daughter, but a punishment for doing things like this, right? The next moment, Jolly's face turned pale upon seeing the drive. That's the one my parents and I have been looking for. Why do you have it?" "It came out of the toys. It might actually be worth what you paid for it at that time." The drive had been inside the box Riker handed to us. Given all the mysterious powers she had shown, I thought there must be a reason she handled it. What emerged was data from a secret ledger. There were receipts from the original suppliers and traces of them being fraudulently inflated. Apparently, her parents, who had been executives, were in charge of managing ingredient purchases and had been embezzling by charging the company more than what they paid, pocketing the difference. Moreover, when we calculated the data on the flash drive, it turned out that the amount embezzled was about $2 million. Somehow, Riker had sensed something and had hidden this flash drive, which was as vital as life itself, to my in-laws, along with some blocks. I can't believe it wasn't found even after we turned the house upside down. We were even more shocked. "What have you been doing?" "Shut up. Give it back. You even looked inside it." When Jolly snatched the flash drive from my hand, she looked relieved. "I've already informed your company about this." However, realizing it was too late, she began to tremble at my words. "No. If they find out about the embezzlement, our lives are over." Then, losing her initial bravado, she suddenly collapsed to her knees and began to sob. "I apologize for everything up to now, so call the company and tell them it was a mistake." I shook my head vigorously and looked at her with cold eyes. "It's not just me. My parents are also going to suffer greatly. Please, I'm begging you, help us." No matter how much she pleaded, her past behavior and crimes could not be erased. Looking at my husband, he muttered, "Don't forgive her. There's nothing more we can do except face reality." Eventually, as I spoke to Jolly's tear-streaked face, she began to dial with trembling hands. I could hear the voices of my in-laws on the phone as Jolly explained what had happened. They screamed in shock and then asked to speak with me. As soon as I took the phone, my in-laws repeatedly begged, "Please do something, we're begging you." I listened silently, but after a while, I took a deep breath. "You must atone for your own sins. Goodbye." After saying that, I ended the call and handed the smartphone back to Jolly. "Think it over again. If you really want to raise Riker, I'll let you have her. Would that be okay? I doubt we could ever understand each other no matter how much we talked. Please leave. It's a nuisance. If you don't go, I'll call the police." Jolly flinched and then backed away, so I mercilessly closed the door. Peeking from the second-floor window, I saw her walking away dejectedly, her figure gradually fading into the distance. This really ends our connection. Afterward, my in-laws and Jolly were fired from the company for embezzling money. They were sued by the company and eventually arrested. Furthermore, after serving their sentences, they will have to repay the $2 million they embezzled. Even after they get out of prison, they will suffer for a long time. Truly, you reap what you sow. Meanwhile, we officially adopted Riker as our daughter. John and I continue to run our restaurant and watch over Riker's growth. Our restaurant remains prosperous, and the extent of this child's abilities is still unknown. Whether she has mysterious powers or not, John and I will continue to love Riker more than anyone. She is our precious daughter, after all.